Welcome into this week's edition of the Research Corner. I'm Tony Mulvey, joined remotely by Kevin Hill. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Tony. Great to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here. Great. You've been busy. We've got a lumber paper that's about to come out on the Passport site, so check that out. But one of the areas that you've been really kind of focused on, and you wrote about it in the Daily Watch yesterday, has been this growth in freight brokerage over the past, since 2001. We've seen just this tremendous growth. There's been changes to the brokerage market as a whole, right? You talked about it in the Daily Watch, that change that happened in 2013. Kind of touch on a little about what you were looking for, what you saw, and we'll bring up a chart here that kind of coincides with what you were looking at.
Yeah, our friends over at Carrier Details and carrierdetails.com sent us kind of a historical look from the FMCSA. These are active, authorized freight brokers that are listed in there. And what you see is over the last 20 years, since 2001, you've gone from 14,000 to 28,000. Been a little bit of a bumpy ride there in 2013 for that, but you're getting, it's good growth. It's doubled, but it's averaging a CAGR of 2 or 3% a year. So it's not a huge proportion. The last 2 or 3 years, we've seen that growth rate spike, right? And we all know why that growth rate has spiked. But there in 2013, you saw a huge dip, about 36% of property brokers, or those MC numbers, disappeared. And that was when they raised, I think it's the BC 84 or something like that, that broker bond. I just call it the broker bond, the surety bond, from 10,000 to 75,000. And you saw 36% of the MC numbers disappear. It gives you kind of a sense of how many of those are dormant, or kitchen table brokers, or part-time brokers, or really what I'm trying to say is brokers that really aren't making any sales or money.
Yeah. And I think it's not really a surprise when you look at it with that rise. It kind of gives you, you have to take on a little more skin in the game, I guess. You've got to make it your kind of sole focus, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you have to make yourself focus. It has to be a business, right? And if you're a one-person operation, you're not making the sales. And we see it all the time, right? You're not making the sales. You're not going to really be that active anymore. No, those are MC numbers, right? And it's important to note that you have the flip side of the freight brokerage thing. You have the agent model, right? And we're about to talk about a great data point from one of those big agent models, and that's Landstar. Every Landstar agent is, in essence, their own freight brokerage, but they're operating under one of the, I think, 4 MC numbers that Landstar operates, right? If you look at global trends, where they have a lot of agents under one MC number, so you have a lot of dormant freight brokerages out there that might be one-person operations that aren't doing any money. But you know what? You have a lot of agents out there that are one-people operations that might not be making that much money, or might be making a lot of money. There's a lot of agencies that are large operations. But they're not going to be accounted for because they're running under someone else's MC. So it's just one of those reasons why it's really hard to count unique freight brokerages. Yeah,
for sure. I think in the Daily Watch yesterday, you mentioned just kind of that growth, like in revenue, right? It's like 81% growth in a very short, I think it was that same period of time. But when you look at it,
revenue growth is really good. It's much better than the count. And then last year was just off the charts.
Yeah, I guess my question to you is going to be: you see this growth over, really after you saw that decline in 2013, but moving it even to say 2018 to now, you see that grow. That it's a lot faster, right? And how much of this is this digital freight brokers, but then also people trying to take advantage of this? The booming freight market that we've experienced over the past few years. Do these brokers that got into the game to try to take advantage, do they leave out, and this kind of reverts to that mean, that 2% growth, as opposed to the growth that we're on, that trajectory that it's on, say, the last 5 years?
Yeah, it's a nice acceleration. You've had 2 bull markets in there, but one of the keys too is technology.
Yep.
10 years ago, you had the load boards and a very expensive legacy TMS system that, there was no cloud. So it was a huge investment, and it was hard to be that kitchen table, right? To go sign up for everything you need and just open. But now the technology is there to Sonar being a prime example of that, right? You get your rates, market conditions, you can get your load boards, you can get your TMS. That you might pay the TMS $20, $30, $40 a month, and might integrate all these great data points in, so you can get up and running and an operation for much less than you could 10 years ago. And not only the cost, but the actual tools themselves will provide real value.
Absolutely. And we'll move on here, kind of shift gears. You mentioned talking about Landstar and that agent model, but we like to look every quarter kind of what their BCO or business capacity owners, or how that's changing, because it kind of reflects the cycle. When you think BCO numbers are trending down, drivers, those leased on owner ops to Landstar, are kind of transitioning back to company drivers. Well, last week, we got the third quarter results from Landstar. We saw the biggest quarter-over-quarter decline in the past 10 years, and it's really an acceleration of this decline that we were already on. I mean, Kevin, what are your thoughts when you see this rapid decline?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's a great description of it, Tony. Number one is that the rate of change is the biggest drop. You can see this really clearly on the map. And what it shows is what every other data point is showing, right? It's showing what OTRI is showing, where the spot market is really hurting. It's really hurting and dropping. And there's a softness in demand, Craig had an article yesterday, right, about peak season being muted, right? So we're seeing a muted peak season. And really, it's just that this cycle of a bull market, the party is over, and it's time to kind of go back to normalcy. And a lot of that is for drivers who have this dream of doing lease on or getting with Landstar to go back and being paid employees again.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me this week's Research Corner. We'll be sure to check in with you again on Thursday for On the Spot. Right now, we'll take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Freight Waves Now.